Squid Game Season 3 is finally here, and the last of the games have been revealed. So let me tell you the best way to survive them. Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that has all 3 keys to the exit. And what's behind that door? Well, would you look at that? It's the subscribe button. So, Squid Game is back, and to be honest, I was a bit surprised with how Season 3 panned out. No spoilers, but I thought the ending was both very satisfying on a character level and set up the future of the franchise well, especially if they insist on doing that American spin-off. Go check out our recent theory, seeing what games they should do in that one, by the way. Anyway, one thing that was a bit of a surprise for me in Season 3, though, was the games. Honestly, the focus of the show ended up being on the character drama, which was a good choice from a storytelling perspective, but for us here in our survival guide, I was worried that there wouldn't actually be enough here for a full episode. It ended up just squeaking by, but that's why this one is a little shorter. Don't fret, we do have a special, extra long project coming out soon to make up for it though. Anyway, you all know what we're here to do. You've signed up for the Squid Game to hopefully earn a life-changing amount of money. All you have to do, beat some deadly versions of childhood classic games. So what's the best strategies to use here? Well, let's dive into it, friends. Here's how to give yourself the best chances to survive Squid Game Season 3. The first game they play in Season 3 is a sort of variant on hide and seek, which I've seen called Keys and Knives. Here, the remaining players are split into 2 teams. The blue team, who are the hiders, and the red team, who are the seekers, and then taken into a large maze-like arena. The hiders are given keys that unlock new parts of the arena and must avoid the seekers for 30 minutes. Alternatively, if they find the exit, they can then safely leave the arena. Meanwhile, the seekers must find the hiders throughout the arena and kill them within that 30-minute time limit. They're given knives to do this, but they don't have to use them. If a seeker does not kill a hider during the game, they cannot win and are eliminated. Hiders are then given 2 minutes to find a hiding spot before the seekers are then let loose. Okay, so let's start out with some basic strategies for hide and seek first. Starting off, you're gonna want to try and find some unconventional places to hide, places that you wouldn't expect people to actually look. Honestly, that is gonna be a little difficult in this setup since there aren't a ton of nooks and crannies to really sneak into. Teho did have a great idea to hide behind an open door into a stairwell, and honestly, this was brilliant. The only reason it didn't work was because Gi-hun was following his blood trail and noticed it disappear. But if you can find something similar and can fit behind that door, you should go for it. You may also want to try hiding behind a door inside one of the little offshoot rooms. If a seeker is quickly running by and just glancing into the room looking for someone, they may not even see you. But if they do come inside, well, if you're prepared, you can surprise attack them with the door and hopefully take them out or get a hold of their weapon. Additionally, if you're hiding in a room with a closed door, listen carefully for people passing by and do not open the doors at all. Most seekers are going to be making a lot of noise as they run about, so you should be able to hear their footsteps. But likewise, the seekers are probably laser focused and trained on seeing any movement or hearing the noise of any of the doors closing. You don't want to give them any excuse to try and find out where you are. Also, if you're found and being chased by a seeker, try to take as many turns as possible to break sight lines and put as many walls between you and them as you can. And if worse comes to worse, just like we see player 100 do in the show, you can try to play dead next to someone less fortunate than you. To be clear, that is a risk though. If a seeker was paying attention to the numbers being called as they were eliminated, they may recognize that you're faking it and take you out. Oh, and another thing, something that just really annoyed me while I was watching this season, for the love of God, do not leave doors open behind you. No, you can't lock the doors again, obviously, but if you don't close them, a seeker will know that someone's been through this way and try to follow you. It's better to have them waste as much time as possible and try to open as many doors as possible. But another strategy that the hiders maybe should have considered, sticking together. Yeah, this is actually immediately dismissed by player 100 when they first enter the arena.
Everyone, we should all spread out and don't just try to hide. We need to look for the exit.
And while there is some logic in that, especially in trying to find the exit, I'm not entirely sure it was the best decision for a few reasons. A big one pointed out in the show is that there are different types of locks in the doors, and each hider is only given one type of key.
Why are you just standing there? The key doesn't fit.
Sticking together means that you'll be able to open any type of door that you find, and on top of that, you'll need one of each type of key to actually exit the arena. But perhaps even more important than that, well, there's safety in numbers. We see a couple of times in the game that there's clearly some hesitation when a seeker finds multiple hiders together, especially if the goal is to just kill one of them. And it makes sense, there's no penalty for hiders if they kill a seeker in self-defense, and if there are 3 or more hiders fighting just a single seeker, even if they have the advantage of the knife, they could easily be overpowered and killed. It could also let you sacrifice someone in your group if it looks like you're going to get caught, though I don't recommend doing this in the long run. The long-term strategy to win the Squid Game is building trust, so if you stab someone in the back, metaphorically, it may look more attractive to your allies to do it literally, because how can they trust you? And finally, a tactic that also becomes a lot easier with multiple people is barricading one of the rooms. If you pack in, say, 5 or 6 hiders into a single room with just one door, and all of them use their entire body weight to keep that door closed, it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be able to force their way in unless they have a bunch of seekers working together, which probably isn't going to happen. Even then, pretty much all of the doors open into the rooms, so it's going to be way easier to hold that door shut by pressing on it with all of your weight than trying to open it by like slamming against it and pushing. As for the seekers, well, if you have this unenviable job, you're going to want to be systematic in your approach. Try every door you can, listen for any noise and look for any movement you can, and do your best to try to corner any hiders. If you see a blood trail, feel free to follow it, but know that this could be dangerous and waste your time because it might just lead to a corpse. But if time is running out and you're getting desperate, it could be worth a try. Honestly, what you're going to want to do here is basically the opposite of what I suggested for the hiders. Try to know what tricks they could pull, check behind doors, check inside of rooms, and just try to get it done as quickly as possible. If you see a large group of hiders, either avoid them so they don't kill you or try to pick off a straggler with stealth. I would also suggest teaming up with other seekers, but that also comes with a ton of risk because kills are split if you do that. So if you have 2 seekers kill just 1 hider, that only counts as half a kill for both seekers. The larger your group, the more that'll get split and the less likely all of you will survive, so I just don't recommend that strategy. And finally, if you don't have to, don't kill more if you don't need to. One of the seekers in the show suggests that
the only rule was we have to kill 1 person to pass, but they never said we couldn't kill more than 1. That means if we kill more of these blue there won't be enough of them left for all of the red ones to murder.
Basically, he wants to inflate their winnings because the prize money goes up by 2 for every hider killed by a seeker who has already won. I get the logic here. The long-term strategy is eliminating the competition for future games, but the big flaw here is that you don't know what that future game is going to be. So this is a massive risk that could get you a ton of enemies on top of just being morally reprehensible. I just don't recommend doing it. All right, with hide and seek out of the way, next up we got jump rope, but this isn't the schoolyard version of the game. No, instead of a thin little string you have to jump over, it's a massive, solid pipe being swung by 2 robots. And you have to cross a bridge while jumping over the rope or else fall into a pit hundreds of feet deep. And worst of all, you only have 20 minutes to do this. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, loyal theorists, the strategy here is very, very simple. There just isn't a big secret. This is a game of rhythm, and you absolutely can take some time to practice. Yes, the rope will start swinging faster and faster as time ticks down, as we see in the show, but you can take a couple of minutes to get into the rhythm of the jumps that you'll need. Once you have that down, take your time and cross the bridge. Only take a couple of steps forward with each revolution and give yourself plenty of time to prepare to jump. Yeah, if you try to run quickly across the bridge, there's a good chance that you're gonna mess up your rhythm or lose balance after a jump, so just don't do that. Oh, and speaking of, you'll want to be staying on both legs instead of crawling like we see the first player do in the show. Basically, the least amount of time, energy, and movement you can exert while jumping over the rope, the better. And on top of that, there's also a gap in the middle of the bridge that's gonna prevent you from trying to crawl under the rope if you're small enough to do that, so just don't do that. Oh, and speaking of that gap, you'll want some momentum for that jump, so when you get there, make sure that you're already moving forward to let yourself cross. And just another note here, but if you get across and then dedicate your remaining time to making other players fail, just like we see one player do in the show, that's a bad idea. While you might think you're slick and have the moral failings to actually do this, if there are any other players across the gap that are a higher moral fiber than you, all that's gonna do is result in you getting pushed instead and falling into the pit. Or maybe a larger, stronger player might make it across the bridge and get past you, at which point you've made a bunch of enemies who might want to see you dead in the next game. Which, speaking of, and here we get to the final game, which I'm gonna be calling the Stone Towers. Here, the players are taken into a large cavern where there are 3 stone pillars shaped like a square, triangle, and circle. You know, you really do have to appreciate the game maker's dedication to their branding. Anyway, in this game, the players are taken to the top of the pillars where they must collectively decide who to push off to their deaths. At least one must fall each round, but as many can die as is needed or wanted. Also, there is a time limit, and if someone isn't eliminated in that time limit, everyone dies. Rounds begin when a button on the ground is pushed, and any deaths before or after that time do not count towards that round. So I'm gonna be straight up with you here, loyal theorists, this one is rough. The strategy here is almost entirely social, which we'll get to in a second, but it also involves the psychological torment of deciding who you're gonna kill. And given that they probably aren't gonna be willing, that means that you're also gonna be involved in someone's murder, an accessory at the very least, which must be devastating to one's conscience, especially if you avoided killing someone in hide and seek or whatever. But okay, with all that in mind, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, what should our strategy be here? How should you approach this if you want the best chances of survival? Well, first off, there is a pole on each platform, which were put there to put distance between the players chosen to die and the rest of the players on the platform. Basically, you can use the pole to push them off while also maintaining most of your safety. So right off the bat, you should absolutely go for this pole as soon as you can, giving yourself a bit of a position of power and authority within the group. In the worst case, you can use it as a weapon of self-defense, and depending on how each round goes, there's nothing saying you can't bring it with you to the next platform if the pole doesn't fall with the selected player at the end of each round. Additionally, if you want the best chances of survival here, well, I don't condone it, but use the element of surprise. As soon as a round starts, people will be expecting a discussion about what they're going to do, or at the very least, some hesitation about who's actually going to be the murderer. You know what they won't be expecting? An immediate attack. If you take the initiative, and if you're an awful enough person, you can pretty much immediately eliminate the selected player by either pushing them or hitting them before they have any time to prepare. Alternatively, you can also use one person to distract the selected player and another person surprise them from the side or behind, or hey, I mean, you could just gang up on them. That has a lot of potential to go wrong like we see in the actual series. But honestly, all of that is really dark, and I think that this game is really the culmination of a lot of what we've talked about in this survival series. We've said this multiple times throughout the entirety of our survival guides here, but the Squid Game is not a zero-sum game. There can and probably should be more than one winner. So if you want the best strategy for Stone Towers, truly, honestly, it's to not be a terrible person. If you have been a good person in the games, if you've made alliances, helped others throughout the entire experience, you're going to have a lot of people on your side, in your corner, who probably don't want you to die. People who can and will protect you as long as you protect them. This is actually why we see most of the players in this game die. They had no trust for one another, and their alliance ended up collapsing, even in little ways, which ended up with all of them dead. If there's anything that these survival guides have taught me while putting them together, it's that the real themes of this show, that humans are not cattle, that every life is precious, and that people are fundamentally good at their core, that right there is the real strategy for winning. Respect life, respect other people, and you'll have the best chance to come out on top. Or again, you know, you could just not play. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on Film Theory, They're making an American Squid Game, but is that really the best choice? Which country would have the deadliest Squid Game, and can we design those games for them? Let's find out.
I remember in Canada we had like this game called World involving
Hello internets, welcome to Film Theory, the show that would rather be wearing a red jumpsuit.
You have to hit
green
people
just
with it.
isn't my color.
I forget
Squid Game, man, it feels like season 2 just happened, and we're probably gonna be waiting a bit for season 3.
You want to like
here, let me
contain
check
the
my
most
notes,
of the world.
When it's coming. Wait, it's coming out next
it's kind of
week.
hard to describe.
Gee, sure feels like they filmed one season and then split it up into 2 for branding reasons, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, season 3 is right around the corner, and don't you worry, we're planning to complete our How to Beat Squid Game trilogy as soon as we can. I'm like literally dropping everything to write that as soon as the new season goes up. So yeah, subscribe if you want to make sure that you see that when it goes live. And hey, actually, while I'm thinking about it, we're also trying something new with playlists. Apparently you can like vote on videos in some of them now. In the description, you'll find a link to a playlist where we're testing out this feature, and we're trying to figure out what your favorite film theories are. So yeah, go check that out, upvote your favorites. I'm pretty sure some of the Squid Games are in contention there, and I'll check back in with y'all about it in the future. Anyway, in the meantime, as we wait for season 3, there's another big piece of Squid Game news that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, while the South Korean version of the show may be coming to an end, that obviously isn't going to be the end of the Squid Game brand. Like, you really think Netflix is gonna let this cash cow have a peaceful retirement, sipping mojitos as the sun goes down? Nah, dog, they're beating this thing until the dead horse is completely pulverized. I actually mentioned this in one of our last Squid Game theories, but late last year, rumors swirled that Netflix was making a spin-off of the South Korean series set here in the good old US of A. They've apparently even managed to get David Fincher, director of classics like The Social Network, Seven, and another one that we can't talk about, on board for the project. Obviously, this is a smart business decision for Netflix. The US has far and away the most Netflix subscribers, so it feels like a no-brainer. But is it the best decision? See, market size is not what made the South Korean show so popular and compelling all across the world. South Korea has just 1/6 of the population and 1/13 of the subscriber base as the US does. No, when you really think about it, a big part of what made Squid Game so gripping to watch was, well, the games. Watching grown adults play simple kid games with deadly consequences is just good TV, and while there are plenty of US kid games that I can envision making a great addition to the series, is there another country that might be a better choice? So here's what we're gonna do here today, friends. This episode's gonna be a fun, lighthearted, unserious one, looking at the games from around the world to see where this Squid Game spin-off should be set. And then, at the end of it, I'll design the perfect Squid Game for that country. Will the United States come out on top, or bottom, depending on how you look at it, or will an underdog like Lithuania or Azerbaijan take home the crown? Get into your jumpsuits, friends. It's time to discover which country would have the deadliest Squid Game. Now, before we start announcing the Squid Game host countries like we're some sort of twisted Olympic committee, we should probably lay down some ground rules. First off, clearly we cannot talk about every single country in the world in this video, and if we're leaving something out, that doesn't mean that we didn't look into that country and its cultural children's games. That being said, if we left something out that you actually think would make for a killer Squid Game event, please let me know in the comments. I'll be looking at them and hey, maybe we'll make some awesome shorts out of it or something. And secondly, we should probably figure out what actually makes for a good Squid Game game. Obviously, not every one of them can or should be a test of strength and endurance. Otherwise, it'd be less Squid Game and more Ninja Warrior. Loved that show, by the way. Shoutouts to the OG Japanese one on G4. But when we look at the list of games that appeared in the first 2 seasons, we can broadly fit almost every single one of them into at least one of 3 categories, which I like to call the 3 Ps. First up, you have the physically based games like Tug of War or the titular Squid Game, but there are others that test a variety of other skills. There are games of precision, where the hand-eye coordination is the key to victory, like the cookie cutting game from Season 1 or Gongi from Season 2. Then there are psychological games. These are more a mental battle between the players and or the game makers, creating great drama as the characters either work together or betray each other to win. Think like Glass Hopscotch from Season 1 or the Mingle game from Season 2. Of course, many of these games can fit into more than one category, but if your country is going to be the host for the Squid Game, you're going to need at least all 3 types of games. So in our search for who should be the next host of the Squid Game, we'll be looking for games that fit into these 3 broad buckets. So let's start out with the first P, physical games. These are some pretty universal games popular amongst a lot of countries. If you grew up in the West like me, you can probably think of several immediately. I'm talking stuff like hopscotch, dodgeball, foursquare, mainstream sports like football, soccer, basketball. Each of those could have crazy outcomes if we Squid Gamify them. But if we look back at Asia, there are some other games that would make for some killer competitions specific to those nations. For example, check out Botaushi from Japan. This game was technically created as a training exercise for the Japanese military, but it's also occasionally played amongst school children. I'm not really sure why. I'm just look at this. Actually, you know what? I take it back. Middle schoolie would have loved this. And let's be real, I'm not sure I've ever seen a game begging to be included in Squid Game more than this one. Here are the rules. Players are divided into 2 teams with team sizes as big as 150 people. Half of each team will be defenders and half of them will be attackers. The defender's job is to raise a pole and then do everything in their power to prevent it from being brought down. Meanwhile, the attackers do everything in their power to knock down the other team's poles. The first team to bring down the other team's pole to 30 degrees or lower wins. And I don't know about you, but I can already see how this would make a great, dramatic, early game in a Japanese Squid Game to kill off a bunch of the extras. Of course, Japan isn't the only Asian nation whose beloved physical children's games could lead to some high stakes. This is Thailand's coconut shoe racing, and, well, it's exactly what it sounds like on the tin. 2 halves of a coconut are tied together with a string, and all you have to do is awkwardly hobble your way to the finish line. The key is maintaining your balance while also keeping enough tension on the string. Of course, if we're hosting a Thai Squid Game, players would have a set amount of time to get across rough terrain, and if you step off of your shell or don't make it across in time, blammo. And of course, no discussion here would be complete without heading to Africa, which has dozens of countries with rich cultural traditions and games. For example, in Ghana, there's a game called Pailolo, which translates literally to time to search for. The premise here is that one person secretly hides an object, like a stick or a specific rock, in an area. Then all of the other players race to be the first person to find that object and bring it back to safety. Now, unless we plan on playing Pailolo as the final game, we're gonna have to have multiple targets for players to go after. But just imagine the drama here. The items could be of varying sizes and weights. You could find a really heavy version of the object early on, but is it worth trying to lug it slowly back to safety but risk running out of time, or trying to find something smaller? Or maybe you want to rush out and find a smaller object, knowing that you'll be the target for other players if you find it early. Or maybe you could be the ambusher here, attacking someone who found the object early on. There's just so much potential. But okay, the more I'm looking into this, the more I am realizing that most countries have excellent options for these sorts of physical games. I haven't even mentioned awesome options I found for Brazil, India, the Middle East. We'll need something to narrow this down a bit more, but thankfully we have to remember this isn't Ninja Warrior or the Olympics. This is Squid Game, and the games here aren't exclusively about testing your physical skills and ability. No, some of the most iconic and nerve-wracking moments of the series emphasized our second P, precision over power. So where in the world can we look for this? Well, if we head over to jolly old England, we can take a look at a classic game like Darts, a popular pub game about throwing darts at a very small target. Seems like exactly the sort of thing that could be its whole game, or part of a larger marathon like we saw in Squid Game Season 2. Or maybe we could even do Tiddlywinks. Yes, go ahead and snicker, it is a very funny word. I know that sounds like the sort of weird old Victorian era parlor game that Brits would love, and well, that's because that's exactly what this is. Tiddlywinks dates back to the late 1800s, where players are given plastic discs called squidgers, and their goal is to try to flick smaller discs called winks into a central cup. No, I didn't make any of that up. It is the most British sounding thing you could possibly imagine. But it can get seriously competitive. Like, not only has there been a Tiddlywinks club at Cambridge since 1955, but there's even a Tiddlywinks World Championship held every year. But if you want something with a little bit of a lower skill ceiling, then we can head over to Italy with the old school game Batamuro, which translates roughly to wall beater. Yeah, this one should be fun. This game was really popular in the 20s and starts with one person throwing a large coin against a wall, hoping to bounce it off of the wall. Each player then takes turns throwing smaller coins, attempting to bounce theirs as close to the first coin as possible. So yes, this game would literally have your life come down to the flip of a coin. But if that sounds too tame for your liking, well, then would explosives liven things up for you? Let me introduce you to Tejo, a bar game super popular in Colombia where you throw large stones at packets of literal gunpowder. Already sounds awesome and could make for some crazy Saw-like Squid Game machinations if that gunpowder like lights fuses and eliminates opponents. But perhaps the ultimate game of precision, and one that I think is almost universal, pickup sticks, also known as jack straws or Mikado. The origin of this one is disputed, with some sources saying it comes from ancient China, while others cite various other ancient civilizations, but the modern version emerged in Europe in the 1700s. Regardless, just imagine, a pile of sticks is plopped in front of you, and you need to remove a single stick from the pile without disturbing any of the others. And if you do, well, rest in peace. And narrowing this down has been a bit harder than I expected. We still have a nice collection of countries with games testing physical skills and precision abilities. But the real insane side of Squid Game comes out when players are forced to play mind games with each other. Is there something here we can use to narrow this down even further? Well, let's take a look at our third P, psychological games. And oh boy, there are plenty of these around the world. A good example? Mafia, also known as Werewolf, or more recently, Now, on the off chance that you haven't played something like this before, Mafia is a game where one or a small number of people within a group are the bad guys, and it's their job to kill the good guys without their identities being revealed. I mean, do I need to say more? It's Among Us, but with like real killing. This is perfect for the Squid Game. The original iteration of this was designed at Moscow State University in 1986, so it would make a perfect addition to a Russian Squid Game. Another option, this one based on the psychological impact of multiple players, the traditional South African game of Mbube Mbube. In the playground version of this game, all of the kids gather in a circle while two are chosen to play at a time. One is dubbed the Mbube, the Zulu word for lion, while the other is the Impala, a type of antelope. Both are then blindfolded, and the lion tries to find the Impala while everyone chants Mbube, Mbube, getting louder as the lion gets closer to its prey. Sounds fun, but if we're going to Squid Gamify this South African classic, well, players may have to draw cards to see who's the lion and who's the antelope. The one who wins gets to live, and the crowd around them gets to choose how much they help or hinder the lion. This would be a perfect mid-game elimination of half of the remaining contestants and would be just absolutely brutal. You know, after looking at all of these countries, at all of the awesome games that we could adapt for the Squid Game, I don't really feel any closer to figuring out who should be the next host of the Squid Game. I mean, just about every country has great children's games that could be turned into a deadly sport. That's gonna work regardless of the culture that came up with them. So maybe there's something else about the South Korean Squid Game that made it must-see TV, both for us in the real world and the billionaires in the story. And well, after thinking it over a bit, I think I found that special sauce. The games are important, yes, but perhaps even more important, the players. Look, let's be real, for the vast majority of people like you and me, we'd never ever in a million billion years sign up to participate in something like the Squid Game. $33 million is just not enough of an incentive to play your silly kids games where my odds of dying are over 99.7%. That math just ain't mathin'. But here's the thing, the players in the Squid Game aren't just ordinary people. No, they're desperate people. They all need that cash for one reason or another. They all need that money, whether it's to help their family, to pay for their own bad choices, or to fix their severe financial debt thanks to unfortunate circumstances. To get someone to basically throw their life away and refuse to end the games early just for a shot that they might earn a large sum of money, their backs have to be against the wall, and then some. And thanks to the way that South Korean society is currently set up, it's not entirely surprising that there are enough desperate people to fill out a Squid Game roster every couple of years. Now, obviously I'm an outsider here, but based off of my research, South Korea consistently ranks amongst the worst in the world in terms of household debt relative to their country's GDP. That's basically just how much money the country makes overall. Essentially, this means that ordinary Koreans have a lot of debt, mostly because of their high credit card usage and South Korea's unique housing system, where renters can be forced to take out massive loans in order to put down a deposit for a lease. Sometimes these loans can be as much as 50 to 80% of a home's value. So even non-homeowners are saddled with tons of debt because of that housing. They also rank among the lowest of all developed nations in terms of social spending relative to their economy, and they have an extremely competitive culture that bleeds into every aspect of their lives, even as kids. So if we really want to find the home of the next Squid Game, maybe the best way we can really narrow this down is by looking at countries facing similar problems who have similar cultures. And if we're looking for high levels of personal debt, a weak social safety net, and an ultra-competitive culture, well, does that sound like any country to you? Yeah, as much as it pains me to say this, and believe me, I tried really hard to find another answer, if we're looking for the country most fitting for a Squid Game spinoff, well, it's the one that Netflix already chose, United States of America. Whether it's credit cards, mortgages, car loans, student debt, whatever, Americans are just drowning in debt, with the American people having a gargantuan combined $18.2 trillion in household debt. And that's without mentioning calls to gambling hotlines skyrocketing thanks to the rapid expansion of online and sports gambling, or medical debt thanks to a lack of a single-payer healthcare system. This is a fact that just breaks my heart, but around 40% of Americans say that they'd have trouble paying an unexpected $400 bill. And depending on who you ask, somewhere between a third to a half of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And all of that combined creates plenty of people who might risk it all in a Squid Game just to get out. So, okay, Netflix's producers might have actually been onto something here. American Squid Game is a good fit for the franchise if they insist on spinning it off. So what would the actual competition look like? Well, based on the first 2 seasons of the Korean show, the Squid Game is generally split into 6 rounds. For my purposes here, though, I'm going to go through 7 rounds because everything's bigger in America, and give a couple options for each round, because you know that they're just going to do multiple seasons of the show, and you might as well have options, right? So let's go through this, shall we? First round, I say we keep red light, green light. I mean, this is the first round we saw in both major Squid Games so far, and it's also a popular American children's game. This would keep some iconic imagery.
It's like something to involve like a wolf or whatever is the bad guy that like what calls it? I forget what it's basically the same concept as red light, green light. It just has a different name here.
From the original series in this new American spinoff, and also lets us kill off most of those extras early on. Seems like an obvious choice, so we're leaving it here. For our second round, though, if the first round is to show that there can be mass casualties in a physical-based challenge, this second round should take things much smaller. Only a small handful of players should be put in danger from this round, and the risk should come from something based in precision or psychology. My choices here? Well, this game should either be Jenga or tag. Basically, the remaining players get split into a few groups and forced to play a few rounds of either game. Jenga could be a fantastic showcase of precision, and if a time limit is imposed, just think of that drama. Tag, on the other hand, would test our players' psychology. If you're it, do you go for someone weak but likable, or someone strong to eliminate the competition early, but risk incurring their wrath if they survive? It's good stuff. For the third round, I want to bring in something physical again, but has an element of the other 2 Ps. My choice? The floor is lava, where contestants have to get across a room by climbing on furniture and walls and not touching the floor. Because, you know, the floor is actual, real, literal lava. First off, this would be visually stunning, and secondly, just think of the drama here. Contestants will have to physically cross this area, all while deciding to help or hinder other players. Some routes through the lava pit could be direct but take a lot of physicality, while others could take less precision or physicality but take much longer. And if worst comes to worse, well, murder could easily happen. This is a slam dunk of a game, and if you ask me, I would bet that this one would become instantly iconic. For our fourth game, I think there are a couple directions we can take here: musical chairs or Duck Duck Goose. Basically, these are the same games with different twists. In musical chairs, there are a series of chairs that the players must walk around while music's playing, and when the music stops, they have to fight to sit down in one of the chairs. But there aren't enough chairs for all of them. In Duck Duck Goose, the players are already sitting, while one of the players is not, and selects another player to be it. That silly goose must then chase the player that selected them around the circle, and if they get around to the circle and sit down in the newly empty slot, that selected player must now do the same thing. As you can see, they are very similar games, and if you add a time limit, well, there's where the drama comes in. This lets us whittle down the player count very slightly while also dealing varying levels of psychological damage. Because in one game, the players have to fight each other to sit and survive, and in the other, they literally have to choose who dies. For the fifth game, I think we should create something similar to the tug of war from the first Squid Game, a game with two very large teams where one half is eliminated, and thankfully there are plenty of options for us to do here. At first I was thinking dodgeball would be perfect, and while that might still work, it may be more dramatic if people are literally being eliminated and offed as soon as they get struck by a ball. Capture the flag could also work very well, but I think the one that makes the most sense? Red Rover. In this game, the two teams link arms with their teammates and then call for a member of the opposing team to Red Rover, send that player right over. That player then runs at the other team and tries to break that chain. In our Squid Gamified version, the team with the most points at the end would be the winner, and the other, well, they'd be red for another reason. For the sixth game, as we're approaching the end of our Squid Game, we need one that will allow the game makers to have as many or as few winners as they want at the end of it. The first season of Squid Game only had 2 players in that final game, and if I were a betting man, there will probably only be 1 or 2 survivors left standing by the final game of season 2. The penultimate game here will need to allow for that, and I have a couple of options. First up, Simon Says. Here, players follow instructions given to them by a game master, but only when they say Simon Says, followed by the command. If they don't preface it with that phrase, you're eliminated. This one could get really creative and difficult too, even with the tasks actually given to the players. What if Simon says to do something like really difficult, or tells you to kill another player? It's potentially brutal and could be stopped at any time when they reach the desired number of remaining players. And secondly, we have Hide and Seek. In this one, I'm imagining all of the players being taken to a large warehouse space full of places to hide as the game masters try to hunt them down. And if they're found, blammo, they're deado. Again, a lot of fun strategy could be had here. Do you stay in the same spot if you think it's a really good one? Do you risk running to somewhere already searched in hopes that it won't be searched again, but risking your neck to get there? Do you sabotage or help other players? There's so much that could be done, and again, it could be ended as soon as the desired number of players is reached. And now, for the 7th and final game. If we're following the model from Season 1, this needs to be a 1v1 game that can be incredibly dramatic. My first thought went to rock, paper, scissors, but they've already done that in the show. And then to thumb war, or heads or tails, but that might be a little lame. So what I ended up settling on? Tetherball. In this game, a ball is tethered to a large pole by a rope, and the 2 players try to wrap the rope around the pole by hitting the ball. The first one to get it wrapped all the way in their direction wins. I mean, just think of the potential cinema here. Rain pouring as the 2 players who have been through hell together fight for their own survival, going for hours and hours and hours until finally one of them fails and is eliminated. Just potentially beautiful and heartbreaking, man. And that, my friends, sounds like the perfect recipe for a truly great or truly terrible American Squid Game, depending on who you ask. I'm just saying, Netflix, I am available. Hire me. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on Film Theory. Is player 456 from Squid Game actually broke?
Oh yeah, last night I did that one quest that gave me a bunch of HP. So to figure out where I'm at, I have done very little combat. I have done smithing, and I made a weapon that I have not used. I have leveled magic that I have not used. I have leveled cooking and made food that I have not used. I have leveled agility that I have used. You can't not. Barely leveled my HP. I did a quest that leveled my strength and attack XP that I have not used. I leveled fire making that I have not used. I've cut down trees. Haven't utilized this for anything really, other than leveling other stuff that I haven't used. So that's kind of where I'm at with RuneScape right now. And that's fine, but I'm pretty sure there is dungeons, there are bosses, there is combat progression that I have not done.
There's
All right,
no
plugging
dungeons,
for the day.
but there is
Because
bosses.
what was the poll? Quest helper. All right, quest helper. Fuck it, let's do it. Quest helper. This is it, I'm assuming. All right, now I need to configure this. Quest helper, but turn off hints is what people want. Turn off hints. Okay. Use shortest path plugin. Okay, honestly, I'm gonna get that on since I do have shortest path. It's gonna make life easier. So I'm gonna use it anyways. Puzzle solutions. That's what it's called. Okay. Show puzzle solutions off. Okay. All right. Well, that's done. Now I play the game. I feel like I need to level my defense. My defense is currently 3. Do that with Slayer. Okay. So I'm doing Slayer. Slayer XP. Okay, let's just... Slayer is a skill that lets you fight increasingly dangerous and lucrative monsters. Some monsters can only be fought if you have high enough Slayer level. To get started with Slayer, you'll first need a Slayer task, which can be obtained from a Slayer Master. Okay, you can then kill the assigned target to get Slayer XP. Once you've completed 5 tasks, you can start earning reward points. Okay, so I need to find a Slayer Master. Quest list. So this one, and then this, okay? And then I type in Porcelain of Interest. Or right-click this, show on map. Oh, start quest helper. Start quest helper. Surely it's working. We're good. Whoa, what the fuck is this on the right? Item requirements: 1 rope, a knife or a slash weapon. Recommended items: teleport to North Draenor, teleport to Fowler Farm. Holy fuck. So it wants me to bring a rope and a slash weapon of some sort. Okay. All right, well, here's a rope. And then let's put my fishing rod away. Should I be playing magic or should I start using my swords, my skimmy? I think I should be skimmying, right? It said slashing weapons, so we'll take the sword. Iron Man legs, Iron Man chest, Iron Man helmet. Is there anything else? Can bring both? Well, if I bring both, then I'm going to want to also bring mind runes, right? I have a shield equipped. I've got 90 salmon, 208 trout. Let's bring 10 trout. Big health pots. All right. Equip, 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 equip. Put that away, put that away, put the staff away, put the boots on. Wait, don't I have gay boots? I do. Oh, fuck yeah. All right. And I'm good, right? That's everything I needed. A slashing weapon and a rope. Where's my combat? Slash. Amulet. That's already equipped. So, teleport to North Draenor, teleport to Fowler. Maybe I should get my Chrono Book teleport bullshit. I've never used it, but... Chronicle. I'll take my Chronicle. Nice. So it wants me to... Why doesn't it tell me what I should do here? It should say over my character to teleport to Lumbridge, but whatever. All right, magic, Lumbridge TP. All right. Ooh, that is hideous. All right, we're walking. 1 fishing away from lobster. Getting there. What is my fishing at? 39. 2,900 more XP, and yeah, I can do lobster at that point. That is a bright blue notice board. Okay. You search through the notice board. Damaged roof tiles for sale. Come on down to Bob's Axes. Contributions welcome to Ned's new window fund. Wait a minute, what is this? Keen fighters sought to deal with troublesome monster. Reward offered. Speak to Sarah at South Fowler Farm for details. This could be worth looking into. Okay. All right, and now I just go this way. So I would recommend changing the path plugin to line mode instead of square, it looks way better. Okay. Path style lines like this. All right. Hello, how can I help you? Talk about the bounty. Oh, thanks, Sudababa. It's about time someone responded. Something needs to be done. Can you explain what happened? Of course, I was making my monthly delivery to the sheared ram in Lumbridge, heading east near Draenor Village Crossroads. Suddenly, out of the trees came a hulking monster. It chased me for a short distance, but luckily Rosie managed to spook it enough to give me a head start. Gave me quite the scare, it certainly did. I even lost my cart full of farm produce. What did the monster look like? I didn't get a very good look at it, I'm afraid. It was getting dark, and as soon as I saw it charging at me, I ran. I can still hear the sound, though, a horrible grunting. Is there anything else you wanted? Where were you attacked? Near the crossroads north of Draenor Village. Okay. Sorry, I'm not much help. It happened so fast. All right. Crossroads north of Draenor. At least I have somewhere to start. Is there anything else you wanted? Any tips on finding it? Tips? You're supposed to be the professional monster slayer. Although I suppose a good place to start would be checking the area I was attacked. Okay, nothing really is going to be new here. Who's Rosie? That'll be our lady over there by the fire. She's such a good dog. She accompanied me on deliveries. You can pet her if you'd like. She's very friendly. Anything else? Okay. Well, that's Sadie. The resulting frantic tail wagging disturbs a crop of dust bunnies. Okay, petting Rosie. You pet the dog. Its tail wags, slapping the rug underneath. Cute. All right, let's go. Damn, big agility shortcut. Crazy. I worked hard for that. Almost out of stamina. Jesus. Yeah, I'm an agility fucking legend. 35. Okay, so here's where I needed the rope. If I didn't have Quest Helper, I would have ran here, realized I needed rope, and then I would have had to have ran to a bank. So I would have had to have ran all the way down back to this bank and then all the way back up. But I know I need a rope because of Quest Helper. You tie the rope slightly around the protruding rock. Climb down. Okay. Climb over. Bro, I'm almost out of stam here. Bronze scimitar. I have a steel skimmy. Skeleton seems fresh. It looks like the bones have been gnawed off fairly recently. There is a note. It's barely readable. This is what I get for exploring uncharted caves. Looks like I'm trapped down here. My entry rope slipped off and now there's nowhere to go but deeper. I think I'd be safer just waiting and praying for rescue. If anyone finds this, get out while you can. Oh, we're zooming in. That's not reassuring. That is a fat fuck. Nice piggy. Just fucking... Oh, my eyes! Blind! Oh, shit. Fucking defensive bars just floating around. Dot, dot, dot. Who the fuck is this? Spria. Well then, what do we have here? Still breathing, eh? Seems I came just at the right time. We better get you out of here before that thing returns. What happened?
No,
Where am I?
Well, I guess we got the belt today, so...
Oh, you're awake.
Still need...
Who are you and how did I end up here?
Chest,
My name is
legs,
Spria and I'm a Slayer
bits.
Master. You've had a nasty encounter with a Sour Hog. Sour Hog? You mean that giant pig monster? Precisely. You're extremely lucky that I found you. Another few hours, you would have been hog chow.